iniziare. Buonasera intanto, benvenuti a tutti, grazie di essere qui. È uguale. Vabbè, allora farò i saluti in piedi. Thank you everybody for being here. Welcome to this masterclass. Sorry. Thank you for coming here, for being here in this masterclass Bubbles with Berlucchi. I apologize for Arturo's absence, but he had a last-minute issue, so he won't be here with us tonight. I will be here in substitution of Arturo. My name is Arianna. I take care of communication in the Guido Berlucchi's company, but my graduation is in winemaking and enology, and I started side by side with Arturo and Ferdinando, our other winemaker, so hopefully I will be a Dane substitute. Tonight we will start with a presentation of the company. And then in about 20 minutes, we'll start with the wine service. The service order is going to be Berlucchi 61 Brut, Berlucchi 61 Rosé, and Berlucchi 61 Nature 2012. I'll give you a signal, so in San Francisco you can start the service as well, so we can be well coordinated. If you have any questions by the end of the masterclass, you can send them through WhatsApp, and I'll read them out loud, and hopefully I will be able to answer. So thank you, and now we'll start the actual presentation. So welcome to Franciacorta. Not working. Can you switch the slide, please? Okay. Still not working? Well, maybe I can give you a signal for the slide changing. Okay. Okay. Now it's working. Thank you. So welcome to Franciacorta. For those of you connected from San Francisco, or those of you who have never visited Franciacorta, this is our territory. We're located in the north of Italy. You can see the map of Italy on the top. In the Lombardy region, Franciacorta is quite a small territory located in the province of Brescia. For giving you an idea, it's 250 square kilometers. It's quite compact. If you want to drive through from the center to the borders, it's going to take not over 30 minutes. So a very small and niche territory. Here in Franciacorta, before 1955, there was no actual wine history. There was some wine production, but it wasn't sold on the market, and it wasn't well known. There was some still wine production, mainly red, some white as well. But nowadays, Franciacorta is well known for its sparkling production, and that is thanks to those two men. Those are Guido Berlucchi and Franco Ziliani. Guido Berlucchi, of course, gives the name to our estate. He was the owner of the estate itself, of the palace, of the vineyards, and one day he decided that he wanted to step up the quality of his still wine production. He was producing a still white wine called Pinot del Castello, and he asked for the help of Franco Ziliani. At the time, in 1955, Franco Ziliani was a young winemaker, and he was acting as a consultant in the area of the Garda Lake. That was already a wine-producing region. And the moment Franco Ziliani stepped inside Palazzo Lana and had the opportunity to see the vineyards, to see the palace, to touch the soil and experience the specific climate, he noticed that that region would have been perfect for the production of sparkling wine. So the two of them started together following this dream, chasing this project in 1955, and in 60 years, they were able to produce the first sparkling wine bottle ever produced with the classic method in Franciacorta. It took them 6 years because it was quite a difficult process. There wasn't the know-how in Italy. There were not enough technologies and machineries, but after 6 years of travels back and forth France, Franco Ziliani finally was able to gain his dream of producing a wine the way the French people were making it. He was in love with champagne, he was in love with the method that is so challenging for winemakers, and in 6 years they were able to go through and produce the first 3,000 bottles. The first 3,000 bottles are from vintage 1961, so that for us is the moment in which the company Guido Berlucchi actually was born, and also the moment in which Franciacorta was really born, because the first Franciacorta bottles are dated 1961 from the winery Guido Berlucchi. You have a picture there. You can see the label reads Pinot di Franciacorta, and that's actually the first time the word Franciacorta appeared on a wine label for sparkling wine. So that's the moment in which the region was born, the company was born, and the history of the Franciacorta DOCG, which is nowadays a popular denomination for sparkling wines in Italy, and a little bit also through the old world. That's the moment in which it was born. So nowadays, the company is led by Franco Ziliani's 3 children, Cristina, Arturo, and Paolo. Franco Ziliani is 89 years old. He is healthy. He comes to the company every single morning. But in year 2000, he passed the lead to his 3 children. Cristina now takes care of communication. Arturo, as you know, is the CEO and the winemaker, and Paolo takes care of the sales and export. The company now counts about 100 employees, and the production grew quite as well. We started from 3,000 bottles, and we now produce several millions, depending on the year. And this is our big family, so the company, I'm part of them. Actually, in this picture, I wasn't there. So, talking about the territory, I told you that Franciacorta was really born in 1961. Of course, I was referring to the the wine region as Franciacorta as we know it today. Franciacorta today is well known for its sparkling production. The moment the label Franciacorta is put on a bottle, it means that that bottle must follow a certain set of rules and regulation. And the first and most important of all is that all the grape and all the production process must happen inside the Franciacorta borders. Today the Franciacorta production is of about 17 millions, which is quite a small number. I mean, it sounds big because it's millions, but if you compare it with the champagne production, which is of about 300 millions, or with the Prosecco production, which is of about 500 million, you'll notice that Franciacorta is quite a niche production. We must use just three grape varieties that are the ones that we can find in cultivation in this area, and those are Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Blanc. The most informed of you might have heard that we have a 4th variety that came up in the rules and regulation of Franciacorta in 2017, that is Erba Mate. It now covers a very small surface of the cultivated area. We do have 3 hectares of the Erba Mate variety, and we're still not using it into the Franciacorta blend, although the rules and regulation allow it for a maximum of the 10% in the Brut cuvée. We work with Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and the wines we'll taste tonight, they all have a percentage of Pinot Noir, and that really represents the Guido Berlucchi winery, because despite the fact that Franciacorta has about 85% of Chardonnay cultivated in the area, and only about 15% or even less of Pinot Noir, we do have 30% of our vineyards cultivated with Pinot Noir. And that's because Arturo Ziliani really believes that Pinot Noir is capable to give wines a strong personality, and he loves to put a certain percentage of Pinot Noir even in the Brut blend. So beside our Blanc de Blanc, our Satin and our Blanc de Blanc, in all of the Berlucchi products, you'll find some percentage of Pinot Noir grape. In terms of hectares, the entire Franciacorta area is composed of about 3,000 hectares, which is 7,400 acres. I've done my math. And as for Berlucchi, we work with about 500 hectares, which is 1,200 acres. Of those 500, we own about 100 of those, and then the remaining 400 is owned by vine growers who then sell their grape to us in the harvest time. That this year was on the 13th of August, by the way. This is the rules and regulation of Franciacorta compared to Champagne and Trento Doc, which is one of the other main area of classic method production in Italy. It just represent the fact that Franciacorta has a very strict set of rules and regulation, both in terms of yield in the field. We're not able to collect a great amount of grape, and in terms of month sur lit, or together with the yeast in the bottle that the Franciacorta is supposed to spend before we can actually call it and name it Franciacorta. The reason why these rules and regulation is so strict is that Franciacorta is a very young denomination. We obtained the denomination in 1967, and then the DOC, and then the DOCG in 1995. So since we are so young as a territory and as a denomination, we needed a strong and strict set of rules in order to ensure the consumers that our quality was very high, because we didn't have a strong tradition to back us up. So we needed all of our products as Franciacorta to be of a high quality and of high level. Then, of course, each label and each brand will have its own style. You'll taste the Berlucchi style tonight, but it's important to know that as a territory, we all work together in order to be well known and well recognized as a high quality classic method sparkling wine from Italy. Those are our 4 pillars. So, of course, we have our 4 pillars in the family. We have Franco, Arturo, Cristina, and Paolo, and our 4 pillars in terms of our goals. We have the goal of sustainability. We work in the vineyard for gaining a high biodiversity and a high sustainability. Our vineyards are organic certified since 2016. And we work together with the University of Milan, Università degli Studi di Milano, pursuing always new projects for enhancing the quality of the soils and of the vineyards ecosystem. We have the heritage and innovation pillar, and that's because we were the first to produce sparkling wine in Franciacorta, and we really think it's our responsibility to let people know what Franciacorta is and to let people know of the importance of these tradition in Franciacorta and of the Franciacorta wine. We have the passion for quality because, as we will see, we put great care and great investments as well into our production department and our aging cellars. And then finally, we feel we are ambassadors of the territory. Berlucchi is the biggest winery on the Franciacorta territory in terms of the amount of bottles produced. So we strongly feel it's our duty to be an example for the other wineries and to be open and lead visitors to visit us and to get to know what Franciacorta is, what it tastes like, how it is produced, and how beautiful the Franciacorta territory is in terms of wine tourism that is a growing part of the Franciacorta economy. Now I think we can start with the service of the wine. We'll quickly go through our three main steps of production as a company. So we have a cultivation, production, and the wine tourism. So as a cultivation in the vineyards, what is that makes Berlucchi, let's say, special? Sorry. So as I told you, we work with 500 hectares of vineyards. 30% of that is composed of Pinot Noir. We do not work with Pinot Blanc, so you'll never find Pinot Blanc inside our blends. And beside being organic certified since 2016, we work toward a healthier and stronger biodiversity and ecosystem. We work with the biologic fighting, so we try to enhance biodiversity by planting several essences among the vines. So if you step inside one of our vineyards, you'll not find just grapevines, but you'll find a good variety of plants, and that's because they will help attract good and bad insects as well. They will help enhance the biodiversity inside the vineyard ecosystem. This is helpful because an balanced out ecosystem will be balanced by itself, and we won't need to treat as much. A good example are ladybugs, coccinelle. Those are the natural enemy of the red spider. That is an enemy of the berry grape. So the more of ladybugs we can have inside of our vineyards, the less we need to worry about the red spiders. Bees are coming back to our vineyards as well. Those are important not just for the vineyard, but in general, as you must have heard, there's a lot of talking about how bees are important for pollinating flowers and for going through the life cycle of all the species. And another thing we do is sexual confusion. We use specific traps loaded with hormones, and those are helpful because they sexually confuse some of the vineyard enemy, the Tignoletta specifically, and if they cannot find their mate because there are those hormones in the air, they won't be harmful for the vineyard itself because they won't be able to lay eggs and so to reproduce themselves. As for the cellar, we put a lot of investment in our production process and in our production site. Berlucchi, Arturo Ziliani took the lead of the vineyards and of the production department starting from year 2000. The first thing he did in year 2000 was to replant all the vineyards. So about all of the vineyards from Berlucchi are dated 1999 to 2000 and something. So now they're about 20 years old, and that's because replanting them, he decided to plant them very close one to the other, so all the plants are quite close. There's a density of about 10,000 plants per hectare, and in this way their roots are forced to go deeper in the ground and they're able to reach more water and more mineral salt, and that helps the quality of our wines as well as the health of our plants. In 2007 then Arturo put his attention to the production site and the pressing site specifically. There was a big investment in the pressing machines. The pressing is one of the most delicate operations in the classic method production. We now work with 8 Cocard presses. It's spelled COQUARD. QUARD, if you want to look for them. They work with a very specific technology, but the idea is that they need to be extremely gentle and extremely delicate in order to avoid extracting any bitter or green flavor from the seeds and from the skin. So we just try to extract the pure must without distressing the seeds and without causing any mechanical damage to the seeds and the skin and the stem itself. So there was a big investment put in that, and there's a great attention in how the process is managed. Each vineyard is kept separate, so we do not only separate Pinot Noir from Chardonnay, but we separate vineyard by vineyard and fraction by fraction. Arturo really likes to stress out how the fraction process is important, it's fundamental, because the moment we start pressing, if we have 1 kg of grape, we'll only get 600 milliliters of juice. So we only press up to 60%. Rules and regulation of Franciacorta would allow us to press up until 65%. We stop a little bit earlier because that last fraction is of a lesser quality and we don't like to extract that. But that 60% is not just kept only in one tank, but it's separated in 4 separated fractions. The goal of this procedure is to have, by the end of the harvest, a winery that is filled up with separated tanks, up to 300 in generous years, of separated wines. So, for example, our Vineyard Brolo will not be just the Vineyard Brolo tank, but we will have the Vineyard Brolo quality A and the Vineyard Brolo quality B and the Vineyard Brolo second quality. So, in this way, by the moment we decide that the blending time has come, we have more base wines to work with, more ingredients to balance out our cuvée. And that is particularly important for non-vintage, because non-vintage must be well balanced in themselves. Of course, it's fundamental for our vintage wines and our Reserva wines, but it's comparatively easier to produce a great vintage wine, a great Reserva wines, because we're only using a tiny amount of the raw materials we have, whereas for our cuvée production, we need to have something that our consumers, some product that our consumers can relate to, can reliably find and recognize in the taste. So we need to have very well-balanced cuvée working with all we have from all our vineyards in Franciacorta. And finally, as for wine tourism, you see Arturo there, he's leading a tour. We were among the first wineries to open our door in 2015. We decided to open the cellar doors when the Food Expo came in Milan. It was a great year. There were so many tourists who were interested in food and in wine. So we decided that we needed to stay open in order to let them know, let the people know how the classic method and how the Franciacorta method was actually produced. So we started being open all the weekends and we never stopped. There was, maybe those of you from Italy will remember the Christo exhibition that was in 2016. So that was as well a great occasion for having visitors coming in the Franciacorta territory. And then we never stopped. Last year we had over 20,000 visitors coming and visit our cellars. Of course, this year, 2020, set us a little step back, but now we're open again. We are, of course, putting up all the precautions we need. Our tours are much smaller than the one in the picture, but hopefully we'll get back there soon, and that's the same wish I give to you, to San Francisco. Now I see that we all have 2 out of the 3 wines already, so I think we can start our tasting. I hope you are ready in San Francisco as well. Okay. Tonight we're gonna taste 3 different wines. All of the 3 are from the line 61. The first 2 that are just 2, golden label and pink label, are our 61 non-vintage. So they're composed of a blend of more than 1 vineyard, more than 1 variety, and more than 1 year. The first one is our 61 Brut, is a blend of 90% of Chardonnay and 10% of Pinot Noir. Those percentages are rounded. They slightly vary from year to year, but the idea is that we have a Chardonnay base with a good Pinot Noir amount for balancing it out and giving it a bit of a spinal cord. Both of them are aged 24 months. Thank you. Whereas the last one we're going to taste, that is in service now, is going to be aged 5 years on lease. We can start a tasting. You can taste it with me. I think in all those 3 wines is very recognizable Berlucchi style. Berlucchi style, Arturo style is towards a certain elegance. You won't find any of our wines too yeasty in their flavor profile. They're all quite fresh, all quite fruity. Of course, there's a stronger yeasty components in the millesimati, in the vintage wines, and in the Riserva. But the main thing we look for is the pure expression of the fruit. I was this weekend I attended a masterclass from Chiara Giovoni, who is a famous wine taster here in Italy, and she tasted she tasted a lot of sparklings, but when she came up to the Berlucchi brand label, she said that she liked a lot about Berlucchi's wine that she could always recognize the fruit, and that one mistake that is often made in the sparkling wine, in the classic method sparkling wine tasting, is that people look for the yeasty notes because that's what make them recognize a classic method, whereas it's not for a given that the first note that punches you must be the yeasty ones. You can still find a pleasing fruit, you can still find freshness, and then in the end the yeast comes and is a pleasing final note, but it's not the beginning, it's not the main note. So in this 61 Brut, I can smell a lot of citrus. It's a very fresh and zesty wine. Those wines were designed to be of pairing with meals. For those of you from Italy, the 61 line is one of our lines of production. It's the only one we export, so it's the only one you'll find in San Francisco. And the reason why I export this line is that it's perfect for restaurants, it's perfect from the aperitif to the main courses. This 61 Brut is very fresh, so can easily clean up any greasy, let's say, meal, or it's even good for aperitif because it's so zesty and fresh and with, let's say, no pretense, so it can be an easy way to get closer to the Berlucchi line. I don't know if you have any comment from... Oh, maybe we'll comment in the end. So the second wine we have is our 61 Rosé. And in this one, the Pinot Noir percentage increases a lot. We have 60% Pinot Noir and 40% Chardonnay. The minimum for the Franciacorta regulations would be 35% of Pinot Noir, but we really like to step up and to get the Pinot Noir noticed in our Rosé. Arturo always says that our rosés are not like the stereotype rosé, like the Provenza rosé, very pale, very light, and very delicate. Those are quite strong in their profile, in their flavor. The Pinot Noir is really perceivable. The way we achieve this beautiful color and the beautiful smell is by a skin maceration. So what we do is we harvest our best Pinot Noir and we put it on a searching table, and only the best bunches get into the destemming machine. Then the Pinot Noir is destemmed. It's the only case in which we destem, which is di raspare. It's a difficult word, so I'll translate it. It's the only case in which we destem the grape before pressing it, and then we put it into a special press that we're able to seal, and we let it sit together with the skin for 12 hours. The temperature is kept very low, so any fermentation won't be able to start, and the juice just extract all the pigments, all the color, and all the flavor without extracting any tannins or any bitter flavor. And that's because tannins are, they melt in alcohol, whereas pigments and flavor melt and dissolve in water. So even though there's no fermentation, we're able to extract this beautiful color and this beautiful smell without having any of the underside of the skin maceration, which would be the bitterness of the tannins and the bitterness of the green of the seeds and the stem. We worked toward freshness in this case as well. The first one was more on a citrusy side, the second is more on a red berry notes, but there's a pleasing acidity that really can accompany the meal, but can also be appreciated by itself or even just for an aperitif. As for pairing, I like to mention especially to out of Italy visitors that I love to pair this rosé wine with pizza, because sometimes can be a difficult dish to pair, and I find that our rosé can be a good match for, of course it depends on the toppings you choose, but for pizza with tomato sauce, it's certainly a beautiful pairing. We can now move to our last wine of the selection. This is definitely our top of the line tonight. It's a 61 Nature 2012. This is a 30% of Pinot Noir and 70% of Chardonnay. So in this case, we have quite a high percentage of Pinot Noir for white sparkling wine. It is aged on lees for 5 years. And it has been, I think, over 1 year from the dégorgement. Yes, it's over 1 year, 1 year and a half. This is the vintage we have available in the US, whereas in Italy you will be able to find also the next vintage, which is 2013. For a comparison, this year, 2012, was quite a warm year, and also the long period after the dégorgement enhances all the richness, all the yeasty notes, all the toasted nuts notes, whereas 2013 is much more fresh in its expression. Of course, it's newer, so it will need a little bit longer after the dégorgement to reach the same level of nuttiness and of yeastiness, and it will probably always be on a different profile. So each one of you can pick and decide which notes you prefer to use for your pairing and which one you prefer for your drinking. And I haven't mentioned the dosages of those wines we're tasting. The first two are Brut, so we have about 6 to 7 grams per liter, whereas this last one, we call it Nature because there's zero dosage. Zero dosage can be called zero dosage, Brut Nature, dosaggio zero or pas dosé, depending on the language you decide to label your bottles. We labeled it Natur, so to be more international and easier to understand. And Arturo Ziliani always mentioned, and he mentioned it last night as well, that he believes that the zero dosage are really the future of Franciacorta. The dosage itself was born for balancing out champagne, so a wine that was born in quite a cold weather and with different tastes a couple of 100 years ago. But today in Franciacorta we have quite a warm weather in comparison with champagne, and especially in comparison with champagne over 200 years ago. We have a good deal of higher technologies. We're able to press very softly and not to extract any bitterness, so we don't need any sugar to balance out. If we work carefully, our cuvées are already balanced out, and we can just work with a few grams per liter in the Brut dosage, just for having a bit more of roundness, and zero dosage when we work really carefully and really with small quantities of our selection, as it is for our Natur 2012. The first year of production of this wine was 2009, so we have produced 5 vintages so far, but we will go on. I forgot to move the slides, but the stage helped me in that, so thank you, stage. So if you have any question now from San Francisco, you can send them through WhatsApp. I'll read them out loud, and hopefully I will be able to... we have a lot of questions already. So do you have any questions here from Italy? So we can give the time to San Francisco to group up all the questions, and then we'll answer all together. Yes? That's a nice question. So the question for San Francisco was what would be a good pairing with Berlucchi's 61 Natur 2012. This wine, in my opinion, is very rich and very complex, and I love to pair it with meat. I'm not much of a fish lover, so of course when it happens, but I much prefer to pair fish with more citrusy wine, whereas this one is really a surprise when paired with meat. We sometimes pair it with manzo all'olio from Rovato, which is a typical dish from Brescia, from Rovato actually, so from the Franciacorta area, which is quite a robust dish composed by veal cooked with this thick oil and anchovy sauce. It's delicious, and it's really rich and strong in flavor, so it goes very well with this Natur, but any dish that can be quite strong and match up the strength of the taste can be a good choice. Okay, so I'll start with the San Francisco's question. August 13, is that early for Franciacorta? No, actually, Franciacorta always, it refers to the vintage. I said that we started harvesting on August 13. We normally harvest around the middle of August. Then in warmer year, it would be earlier in August, and in a colder year would be later in August, but we always harvest by August. Our harvest lasts for 3 weeks, and one thing I didn't mention is that in Franciacorta we must hand pick. There was this picture of a crate, of a yellow crate, if the stage can help me, di una cassetta gialla con dell'uva dentro. We must hand pick in crates, and those small crates that can carry about 40 pounds, 18 kgs. Bye. Ci siamo scollegati? No? Mi sentono ancora? Sì, ok. Sorry. I feared for a moment I lost you. Yes, that's the picture. We handpick in those crates. They are very small because the goal is to carry the grape almost as entire as possible to the pressing moment. We don't want to squish it before it gets the press. We want to maintain it whole and entire for the whole process. So we want to control the moment it's actually squished. So not too early. August 13 is quite average. How many producers are in Franciacorta? Today there are 117 producers affiliated with the consortium of Franciacorta. What are the characteristics of the new fourth grape? So the new fourth grape is called Erba Mate. And the main characteristic of Erba Mate is that it's extremely acid. So it's quite late in its ripening period, whereas I told you we always harvest by August. We harvest Erba Mate by late September. And it maintains a very high and strong acidity, and that's probably the reason why it was dismissed in ancient times. They didn't have the means and the technology for working with that type of acidity, but today it can be helpful for balancing out our cuvées in a moment of global warming. So our seasons are getting warmer and warmer, and the acidity is what pays the price of that global warming environment. And Erba Mate can be helpful for giving that hint of acidity that sometimes is missed in hot years, in warm years. Can you buy the wines in San Francisco? Yes, you can. Our importer is Volio. I'll give you somehow the contacts. My contacts, if you want to send me an email, is arianna.biagi. Sorry. I'll spell it out. It's Arianna, which is my name, Arianna .biagini, Biagini, at Berlucchi, that you'll find on the logo as well, at berlucchi.it. If you send me an email, I can put you through our importer, that is Volio Imports, by the way, so you'll find it in San Francisco as well. What is the price point? I can talk about the price point in Italy. I'm not sure about the international price point. With the importer is Volio. Rosé available in Northern California. I'm not sure. I don't have the so specific information. We are available in California. As I mentioned, our importer is Volio. I'm not sure about Northern and the specific places where you can find us. What is special about Natur wine? The specialty of Natur wines, let's say, are three. So the first one is that is a vintage wine. So we work with cuvée a lot, but for vintage wines, we only work with that specific vintage. So we need to cope with what that year is giving us. So if it's a warm year, you'll find it in the bottle. If it's a cold year, you'll find it in the bottle. We don't try to mask or to balance out too much. We want to highlight the year effect. So if you want to have like a vertical tasting, you're able to do so by tasting our vintage wines much more than you can do with our non-vintage wines as well. The second special things about Natur is that it's zero dosage, so there's no sugar in the final dosage. So again, we don't try to mask anything. We try to enhance what that specific year gave us to work with. And the third thing is that we only work with our own vineyards. So even though we work both with our vineyards and vine growers' vineyards that sell their grape to us, for the Natur and our vintage and Reserva wines in general, we only work with our vineyards that are very close to the estate and that historically belongs to the Guido Berlucchi estate, because those are the ones we know at best, we know the most, and those really represents the expression of the core of Franciacorta. We are located at the very center of Franciacorta, Borgonato di Cortefranca. If you ever have the chance to come and visit us, both for you in San Francisco and for you here in Milan, we'll wait for you all. And it's located at the very heart of Franciacorta, and that's what we like about our vineyards being so close, because they really represent the core and the heart of Franciacorta. So going to back to the price point question, we are at about 20 euros, so I'm guessing $35 to $40 for the first two. And as for the last one, we are at about 35 euros, so I'm guessing about $50 to $60. That, of course, will vary and depend a lot, but just for giving you an idea. Okay, last question. Serving temperature of the Natur. The reason why I asked our sommelier to serve them all together is that the Natur needs a couple of degrees more for really help its expression. I would say from 8 to 10 degrees. My personal suggestion is always to have your bottles in glass or quite cooled down, because by the time you have your meal, your conversation, your dish in front of you, the wine will naturally warm up, and the moment you sip it, you will be able to tell what's the best moment for you personally. Arturo, for example, likes them a little bit warmer. Some people like them a little bit colder. Definitely, if we're talking about aperitif wines, so for example, the first two or more simple wines, there's a less to express, so the primary flavors will be already out in the glass by the time you smell it, whereas Natur has a long story to tell. So if you smell it once, twice, or thrice, you will always find new smells, and it's beautiful to be able to find a new by the temperature goes up. I think we're done from San Francisco. So any other question from Italy, from Milan? No? So I thank you all, both from San Francisco and from Milan. And let me know. Is the connection okay? Bye-bye. Cheers. Okay.
Keep them on the side or put them under. Please go back to your seats. You guys, I'll try to accommodate you a little bit better. Did you say 40 minutes? 40 minutes, yeah. I said 11:45. Yeah, there's a nice little patio right here outside, so please feel free to